Wolves 1, United 4. You can only beat what's in front of you. And even though it got a little bit hairy at times in the end of the first half, United eventually ran out comfortable winners to make a highly welcome return to winning ways. Nick, are we happy?
Yeah, happy with the 3 points always. Are we happy with the performance? Certainly, that first half was a bit of a struggle at times, wasn't it?
Mm.
But like you've just said, you can only beat what's in front of you. I thought they were a shambolic side, to be fair, Wolves, and it just shows you what kind of trouble they're in. And big questions as to why Edwards took the role, to be honest, looking at him on the sidelines. But listen, 4-1 might easily have been 6-7 on another evening. And yeah, obviously just run out winners like we kind of said we would do tonight.
I mean, it could have been home and hosed really by, well, certainly by half time or certainly by the half hour. But it did drift, and after we took the lead through Bruno, it we fell into some nasty habits, some recurring nasty habits of just not fully concentrating, not seeing out the half, and then when they equalise on half time, obviously, we're exchanging messages during the break. We were steaming. But then the second half was substantially better, wasn't it? Or not substantially better. It was they clearly had words, should we say.
Yeah, definitely. Tale of two halves again. And we're becoming used to this analysis, aren't we? We're starting slowly again, and that's the surprise. And not necessarily for the first 5 or 10 minutes, but just we then just take the foot off the gas. And Wolves were able to think, we can get at them here. They noticed Dallow was staying quite high with Mount. There was oceans of space at times. I noted 3 times they got him down that right channel in the first 13 minutes, and that was a bit of a worry. Arias pulling out, Hoover getting really high. So yeah, it's an interesting one that doesn't seem to have any. I don't know. There's no halting this way of starting games, and it is a big worry. So kudos to the lads for the second half performance and coming out strong and on the front foot. But when are we going to see it first 20?
One of the major talking points, I mean, for me, Mason Mount was absolutely superb, narrowly ahead of Bruno. I suppose in terms of doing our usual housekeeping, Mount was a talking point, wasn't he? Because he was in from this start instead of Xerxes. So if you want to use that as a bridge into explaining how both teams set up and go through United selections.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say exactly that. So with Mount coming in for Xerxes, it's the way he's been given minutes recently. He's been very cautious with Mason's approach and game time, which is pleasing to see really after what happened when he overused him in the spell where he's come alive with Liverpool, Sunderland, etc. So, but we thought this game might be one for him. It's going to be where he's got more time on the ball, his accuracy and passing and immediate, kind of Wharton-like incisive balls that can be, joy to behold, and that we certainly saw at times tonight. So Xerxes dropped out. I thought Xerxes, he's had his good bits in the last couple of games, but he does provide that focal point that Amorim really likes in his structure. But he hasn't done enough to maintain it. And there's also an element of resting him there a bit tonight as well. Be interesting to see what happens against Bournemouth. But yeah, we thought Mount might come in for Xerxes. That was the case. We did think about Mainu and Martinez, didn't we? But that was only ever going to be a long shot. I thought the team picked itself. I thought Heaven would start ahead of Euro and then come central, which he did. Mazraoui keeps his place because he's for we'll come on to a bit of patchiness from him tonight, but overall he's been on the front foot. He loves to dive into those tackles and he's very aggressive. He's good at getting out there and blocking shots when he needs to support Ahmad. So he rightly kept his spot. Shaw just superb again and really vintage season on the cards for the Englishman. And yeah, and Bumo supporting Cunha in that kind of, well, first half narrow role alongside Cunha. Second half, we might talk about Mbumo starting a bit wider. Um, and we saw a bit of 4-4-2 out of possession as well, which was interesting to see. So Mazraoui, becoming that auxiliary right back, and Dalot pushing on, becoming a bit of a left winger, certainly for a lot of times from, well, actually 10 minutes he goes through, doesn't he, on goal. And that led to be the story of the half. He was staying quite high, which again caused some issue on the counter attack where Wolves had some dangerous opportunities, shall we say.
I mean, we spoke in advance about if there was ever a time to take the handbrake off, within certain set parameters, then it was going to Molineux against a Wolves team that they're at a very low ebb. The fans obviously made their thoughts quite clear before and during the game. Did we, and like you say, with the wing backs being high a lot of the time, did we see a braver, more attacking approach in general? Just again, like I say, within those sort of parameters of caution.
Yeah, I thought, in fairness, I didn't think it was so much a high press the way we started. I thought we might have seen that, given the success that we mentioned last game versus Brighton when we talked about the previous few games. And I thought we'd go, man for man because they're playing a similar system, 3-4-3 on paper, although Arias was slightly narrow in supporting Strand Larsen. And I thought we'd go man for man, high press. We didn't quite see that, but what we did see is certainly an instruction for Dalot to spring beyond Mount when Mount came to collect deep, which we've seen in numerous games this season when that pair starts on the left. And we saw, Cunha and Mbeumo work as a pair at times, certainly again from the Wolves play out from the back. And you could argue our back line was slightly higher than in the last game. But yeah, I thought we might have been a little bit more aggressive, but there was certainly some instruction within the shape that was a bit more, on the front foot. And another example of that, by the way, was Bruno's role in the first half. He tended to be very close to Cunha. And so again, there's like some verticality between Casemiro sitting deep in front of the back, often a narrow back three, and then Bruno directly ahead of him. I noticed that was playing out first 25 minutes. And again, just not to repeat myself there, but there was two or three occasions where Wolves exploited that in the first 15, 20 minutes down their right channel. And Casemiro's had to get over to support where Bruno should have been, quote unquote. And certainly Dalot often trying to get back from going high in that first half. So there was, a couple of tweaks. Amorim likes to talk about tweaks. And there were a couple of those things. And I think out of the two centre halves, you saw Mazraoui going slightly higher than, two wide centre halves. Mazraoui slightly higher than Luke Shaw and supporting Ahmad where he could. But then getting back into that kind of, as I say, right back at times, and then obviously tucked in alongside Heaven when there was, balls coming into the box.
In terms of the goals, I mean, we try and do a tactical analysis as much as we can, but when you're picking the bones out of the first goal, there's no tactical element to it at all. As the ball comes loose, Cunha, he wants the one, for my money, he wants the 1-2 from Bruno so he can get his goal. You could see all night he was absolutely desperate. I think he had 8 shots at final count, which, who would begrudge going back to your former club when they're at such a low ebb, when you're getting booed, of course you want a goal. So to me, it looked like he didn't want the assist, he wanted the ball back. It wasn't perfectly executed. Bruno falls over, scores on the floor. Sam Johnson should probably have saved it anyway. I mean, it's an absolute mess. It's a car crash of a goal, really.
It is. It's like the commentator said, it is that, oh, what Carragher said at halftime was quite funny on that one. He didn't know what he was seeing. It's a mess from Andre and then Casemiro pressing, like you've said, and then the bad decision making between Cunha and Bruno, and then Sam Johnson getting a really weak palm. He's become, I'm afraid to say, a really weak goalkeeper, having started his career with us and started very well and gone on to some good teams and had some, solid mid part of his career. He sadly in this Wolves team, he's not looking good at all. He's become a bit of a shell. On the Cunha one, yes, I kind of agree with you. I think the first thing he might have done, certainly an on fire Cunha, when he receives that, is just keep it coming. Just keep it coming to the left, have another touch, and then just left foot. bottom left as he's looking at the goal, so Johnston's right. I think an on-fire Cunha just takes it in his stride and bends it round with the instep of his left foot. And then that is, Johnson would have been, stuck in sand, so to speak, and he would have just put that away. But you're right. Once he then gives it to Bruno, he's thinking, yeah, there's a bit of five-a-side at Carrington going on there, isn't there? He's like, yeah, give me back. I'll put it into the empty goal. But it is, there's some, he slips, the ball's slow. Yeah, it's a right royal mess. And how Bruno ends up scoring, I don't know. I mean, Edwards will be absolutely livid with his defense and goalkeeper in that scenario.
And obviously, in the interest of balance, we have to sort of dwell on the downside of a lot of getting in, a position of power and then letting it drift and not even
Yep.
seeing it out to half time. So, I mean, how would you pick apart the equaliser?
Well, again, I'd just maybe just take it a step back, as you've alluded to there, just going ahead and then allowing the opposition to get a foothold in the game. The youngster, I don't know how to pronounce his name in central mid, Krejcic, was it? Krejcic, started to get his foot on the ball. You got Arias dropping deep. Andre was coming to the right side and driving at us. And they started to create those overloads in the center of the park. And then because they noticed Bruno was high, right? So they've started to do what most teams do against us, get behind Bruno, and then they've got the 2v1 against Casemiro and then out wide and in. So we saw a bit of that happen. And then all of a sudden, I mean, at no point did they cause us sustained serious threat. I'm not saying that at all. This wasn't, a Forest game, for example, down at the City ground. This was more a case of that's it, 1-0, guys. This will be 2-0 soon. And there's no strategy to go for that second goal again. And that's the frustration. And I'm sure hopefully Amorim has that frustration as well, because Wolves did create two or three things, cutting the ball back on the edge and there was a couple of block shots. There was a free kick on the edge, if you remember. And then long and behold, that goal comes. It kind of comes from, they're just playing around the back, then it comes to their left channel, our right side. There's not enough pressure on the ball from Bumo initially. Then Casemiro has a little nibble, and then all of a sudden there's space for the wide centre back, was it, who's then took the ball out, and then they just know, right, here we go. This is the one of the tactical elements we can exploit. It's the long ball into that 45-degree angle, central penetration, if you like. On in this occasion, it was between Aidan Heaven and Luke Shaw, and they just know at that point there'll be something that comes from it. And long and behold, there was. So ball's then gone out. And to be fair, we've bemoaned the the left and right tens dropping too deep in recent games and playing, often this six at the back at times against teams. And so we'll be a little critical here, saying Mount perhaps should have tracked Hoover there on that right side. Mount is staying very high in that situation. So I'm semi critical. It'll depend on the instruction. That's not a precise science, because in previous games we've said we don't want to see that too often. Certainly Cunha does that when he's left side. But he is in space nonetheless. It means Shaw's got to get out late. Dallo is coming back in from the previous attack. Ball's then played across wonderfully on there. Was it a half volleyed cross? It seemed to be a really low, leveled cross. And again, Mazraoui doesn't cover himself in glory. He's gone a bit too narrow, goes over his head. At this point, I do expect Ahmad to have seen that run. Ahmad just lets him bypass him easily. Ball has got to the byline, pulled back. And if we're being uber critical, Mbeumo is just walking back into the penalty area. So if he just scans there on his right shoulder, he can see Bellegarde there. But it is a great kind of finish to the right hand side. So there's two or three elements there that Amrin and his team will have to look at, because goals like that are just coming far too easily to the opposition.
Yeah, we've been here before, haven't we? Um, do we believe there was a rocket unleashed at halftime? Because they came out with a lot more purpose. If there wasn't, there should have been. They came out with a lot more purpose, and there was no danger once they got ahead again. There was no danger of it slipping that time, was there?
No, I mean it is hindsight, but yeah, of course, once we then got that, there seemed to be a bit more. Come on, guys, this is where we need to go with this. And the goal itself, very scrappy again from Wolves. They just just not cleared it correctly. Cunha's got the loose ball, lovely through ball into Dallo, who again's come from that left to right, having stayed high from the previous attack. And this time he's squared it to the right, which was good to see. Potentially could have done that first half when he was through. And then Bumo's obviously got the empty net. It's a good finish with his weak foot, but he's been put on a plate there by the Portuguese.
Speaking of putting it on the plate by a Portuguese, third goal, perfect little segue there, very well done. Um, Bruno, lovely little clip ball through. We've spoken about where we're delivering the crosses from, and he is really the only player that it doesn't really matter where he is, does it? He finds an angle or generates an angle, and lovely finish by Mason Mount. But it's for me, it's all about the pass, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Balls coming from the right side. Bruno is in that position where we just want to see him more often. Either the left 10 or right 10. He's picked it up there in the right 10 position, that lovely angled clip. Mount's made a perfect run and credit, like you say, to Bruno for seeing that run and playing it at the right time. These things are not easy. They're just made to look easy by the wonderful foot, the magician of the magician. So lovely ball in, and Mount, yep, sums up his performance tonight. A really good finish, lovely volley. You just know once he was in that position, he was going to finish it, given his performance to that point.
You mentioned earlier, or you likened him earlier to Wharton, some of his passing. It was a joy to behold, wasn't it? I think he had an extraordinarily high pass completion rate. I think he only misplaced one pass all evening. But
Yeah.
that particularly impressive, given the manner of the kind of pass that he was taking on. He was trying some proper difficult passes, but first time a lot of the time, and it was just opening the game up. And that's obviously you don't play Wolves every week, do you? And you have to make hay while the sun shines. But clearly, he was looking to do that, wasn't he? It was just forcing opportunities and just running riot, really.
I totally agree with you, and we've sung his praises, despite our caution in the preseason review around his potential, longevity, his injury record, but we've never doubted his caliber, and it's been pleasing to see him used intermittently in recent games. But he now will be knocking on the manager's door, saying, I need to start. You can always bring me off on 60 minutes, 65 minutes. And that, that first time passing, that injection of pace, that, clip balls round the corner. But his favourite one is picking it up just inside left hand position, just beyond the halfway line. First time pass over to Mbumo, or sometimes it's Ahmad coming from that right side. It's played with, perfect precision, perfect pace. It's really, yeah. If there's one player that this 3-4-3 suits the Amorim approach, it's Mason Mount. For all the talk of misprofiling players, and not always Amorim's fault for misprofiling players, just players that we have in the squad as well. It's a bit of both, in truth. You're looking at players who kind of outperform the system in a way, and Mason Mount's one of them. That might sound harsh on the likes of Bruno, who we know is not a natural box to box midfielder, and Mbumo even is not a natural 10 in a 3-4-3. We've talked time and time again that we would like to see him wider, potentially in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3, and we'll see that impact that he had at Brentford. Um, Sesko, you could argue, is definitely, one that suits this system. Coming in, gets the play, joins and links the play well, and then gets in into the box. But I think Mount, when you look at everyone, and everyone talks about, square pegs in round holes, Dallo being platform, Dorgu being platform high on the fifth line, fourth line. Um, Ahmad, not a natural wing back, which I'm sure will come on to his performance. Mount, it was a joy to behold when he's in this kind of form, and he really does suit that left hand role.
We're going to touch on Ahmad then. His shot that won the penalty, which, you know, if whether it's a penalty or not. whether the first half one was a penalty or not, it's a toss of a coin, isn't it? In terms of his general performance, I thought he had that look about him all night where he wanted a goal, but maybe too much, and that kind of compromised his performance a little bit. And we alluded to the role he played not being fully switched on in the Wolves equaliser. Was there maybe a danger with them being such poor opponents that he's kind of lurking upfield a little further than he should, anticipating a counter attack in advance and not giving due respect, perhaps?
There is on that one definitely. Certainly on the goal itself. There's no doubt about it. He doesn't see Wolf. Just lets him drift past him there, and that let's not take it too much into isolation. But in that specific moment, he has not scanned and opened his body up. But we have seen that a couple of times. In fact, we've. It's so hard to explain or discuss with Ahmad. It's often he's defending too deep, and then
Mm.
we need him to have started a little bit higher in like the second line beyond the back three, and then he's got that out ball, and I keep on coming back to the Sunderland game where he did really well, and even Burnley at times he was a terror down that right side, and then games like tonight he's a little too high, and I don't know what it is. It's a really hard one. Everyone knows how much you and I both love Ahmad. But if you look at it, and it kind of falls into the same pattern as last season, he's started really well in the season, and then the second half of last season, or maybe that's been too harsh, the last third of last season, he's just started to overplay a little bit and take too many touches on the ball. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. So it was only a couple of games ago where you and I were singing his praises and saying his decision making was superb. Whether that was when he played left 10, which he did tonight for the last period of the game, by the way, or whether it was just in the right wing position. There's some overthinking. The Spurs game comes to mind. There's some over just dallying on the ball too much. There's times when Mbeumo wants it through. Cunha's made that diagonal run 2 to 3 times tonight, and Ahmad just needs to play it. Just go with his instinct, play the ball through, and that's what we want. We want players breaking lines in that final third. So let's be playing it early. That's the difference between the Barcelonas, the Arsenals of the world, and Manchester United at this current time. When Eze gets the ball for Arsenal in that left side coming in, which is kind of equivalent of where Ahmad comes in from our right. He's just when the ball's given to him by a Calafiori, it's just then played into Marino who's made the run or Gyökeres who's made the run. And I think we're not seeing that from Ahmad at the moment. We keep saying it will come, and again, superb player, really rate him. The other thing is, he's taken him on. We've wanted him to go more to the right side, so on his weaker foot. So especially when he's in the area, we know that defenders know he comes in and shoots with his left foot. Now we're wanting to see something slightly different because the defenders have found that out. So we want him to go past. I thought, he had the better Mosquera at times tonight, and Gomez. Just go in, jinx to the left, go back on your right foot, and then let's use that right foot. Let's get a shot off near post, and that will surprise the goalkeeper because they won't be thinking about that from Ahmad. So that's potentially one area of his game to improve. It's not so much the crossing. We're seeing that actually at times. If he's wide in the penalty area, he's getting those right foot crosses across in fairness. But I'd rather him go direct on the angle, go to the right, and instead of cutting back again on the left, just have a shot with that right foot. So yeah, a frustrating evening for Ahmad tonight, but certainly not reminiscent of his season per se. We've just seen last couple of games some dallying on the ball from him.
Just to round off, Nick, on the subs, you made the point off camera. Cobby came on for Casemiro again. So obviously the scene has been set by Ruben that it's Cobby or Bruno for a role, but we're seeing just maybe a hint to the contrary now, are we?
Yeah, I think so. That's three occasions where he's come on for Casemiro. We predicted that might happen tonight, whether that was from the start or towards the end of the game. Casemiro's legs now must have some tiredness to them. Again, I thought he was really good tonight, but again, the opposition were not at the caliber we can measure any kind of success against. But the Brazilian did really well, cutting out everything, blocking everything, and then his short passing game was on point tonight. So when Kobe comes on, you're thinking, well, Ruben, you've told us you prefer him to, be the replacement for Bruno. So which one is it? But rightly so. I think if Ugarte comes on tonight for Casemiro, when whatever it was, was it 3-1 at the time? Um, he knows he'll get a backlash from that. So Kobe comes on, big cheer from the away end. I'm sure you noticed, Steve, because you spot everything. Big ironic cheers. And yeah, it was really good to see him. And there's no reason why those two can't play together. I'll say it probably for the third time this season. I've been quite critical of Amorim's profiling of Kobe Mainu. I don't think he's a 10. I don't think he's an attacking eight, even if I'm being brutally honest. I see him in that kind of 6 come 8 role that is a box to box midfielder as well. It's like, he can work horizontally, can work vertically. He is a bit, as we said in the last pod, there's a touch of Wharton to him, but he does carry the ball a bit more than Adam. And that's why he's a little bit harder to profile because when he's in the final third, that carrying and close control becomes really useful. And he's good at finding a through ball or asking for the 1-2. And of course, the Wolves away goal a couple of seasons ago, which really put him on, in the minds of people. So, yeah, he's come on for Casemiro, and that should be a frequent thing. And he should be challenging Casemiro for a spot alongside Bruno, or even instead of Bruno as well. And no reason Kobe and Casemiro can't play in there either.
So we got a full week now, Nick, until the next game, Bournemouth at Old Trafford. We have struggled against them. Not least last season, losing 3-0 at home, and it required an injury time equaliser at Bournemouth to take a point in towards the end of last season. But they are actually behind us at the minute. They're struggling. They've not won in a little while in the league. Quite a few defeats in there. Yeah, but you can't rest on your laurels, can you? Against them, they've got a very, very good young manager, really talented squad. I mean, it's always hard to predict what United are going to do anyway. But I just feel like this game, particularly, it could go literally any way.
Yeah, anyway, given what's happening at the moment. So it's a tough game and like you've alluded to, if we go out and get 3 points, we climb again. But you just don't know what's going to come. They're certainly one of our bogey sides. 3-0 last year was one of the worst performances I've ever seen at Old Trafford by us. And they've got one of my favourite up and coming players, Semenyo. There's rumours the last couple of weeks about him, and there has been since the summer. I'd snap him up in the heartbeat. He really is, unbelievable player and multi-purpose as well, and defensive minded. He's superb as well, not just on the front foot. And yeah, it'd be a tough game. I'm sure they'll stick to 4-2-3-1. They did go man for man in pre-season. If you remember, they matched us up 3-4-3. I don't know whether Iraola will go with that again because it didn't quite work for them. So I think we'll probably just see the standard approach from them. Will it be Clivert alongside Semenyo and then behind Ivan Nielsen, who's a superb nine who just comes in, links the play so well, and then he's darting in behind. So his pace will be a real issue for our back line and might indicate where Amorim will go with our back three on that one. And of course, you've got Scott and Tavernier in central midfield. I think Scott's really, come of age and, such a simple player in the middle there. Reminds me of some of the, the central midfielders that are standing out at the moment. The Andersons, the Whartons, the Declan Rices, really decent central midfield progressor of the football. So it's going to be a tough one. Their wide fullbacks will push our wing backs all the way back at times, and we're going to have to be ready for it. Interesting. I don't know what we'll see. Selection wise, he's got a couple of questions now. Does Xerxes come back in? I don't know. Does Cunha stay in the false nine or does he go left and give Mount a little bit of a rest. I don't see how you can drop Mount after tonight's performance. So, a couple of quandaries for Ruben. We shall see in due course. Another Monday night.
Yes, another Monday night, another late finish. Apologies for that. But yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's enjoy a 4-1 away win. They don't come along often. And finally, taking an opportunity to move up the table. So enjoy it. In the meantime, Nick, thank you very much for joining.
Cheers, Steve.